Everyone's got me all wrong. You think war drives me, or power, wealth? Nah, never have. You know what drives me? What I really want? I want answers. Same as you. See, mortals have it easy. When they push up against life's big questions, they can look to us. They give them meaning, divine comfort. We both know that's a sham, but when we have questions, why are we here? To give meaning to mortals while living without it ourselves? No. We're more than that. And I found something that proves it.
What is it?
It's what drives me. You feel it, don't you?
Feels like knowledge. Truth.
All truth. All the answers.
In Greek mythology, Kronos went up to his father Uranus and ripped his balls off. Then Kronos' son, Zeus, usurped him and sent him to Tartarus. And in God of War, Zeus' son Kratos killed him in turn. Like father, like son, like master, like apprentice. This is the story of usurpation from one generation to another. It's recounted by Sophocles in the famous Oedipus Rex tragedy. We see this legacy and tendency for disobedience and hubris in Icarus, who flew too close to the sun despite his father's warning. Even Adam and Eve had a mind of their own, and could not let well and good bygones stand by the wayside. They had to wish to become like God. Not every storytelling tradition is so dominated by main characters who insist on disobedience and undermining or replacing their parents' authority. In the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata, a character called Bhishma renounces his claim for his father's throne and takes a vow of lifelong celibacy just so that his father can have an additional wife. In the Confucian tradition, filial piety is a central tenet. Doesn't mean there's no disobedience in China, but in European-descended cultures, to this day, we do inherit the legacy of our forefathers who ingrained the possibility of the spirit of disobedience into their children. Even Luke Skywalker struggles with that problem of becoming like your father by destroying him. One of my favorite characters in literature who has this aura of disobedience, and one of the most famous and important, is Faustus. Faust, or Faustus, was a historical magician or scholar who became a legendary figure of German storytelling, with many famous versions of his story constituting cornerstones of Western literature in their own right. The basic premise of the story is that the magical scholar guy is bored and he chooses to make a deal with the devil, where he sells his soul in exchange for unlimited worldly knowledge and power. Basically, it's a metaphor for what European countries did in the modern era. They turned their back on their religious tradition, cultivated worldly knowledge instead, conquered the world, gained every worldly comfort you could imagine, and in return, they forfeited the spiritual health of their societies. This is exactly what Odin wants to do in God of War Ragnarok. He sees a glimpse of the truth of the universe, and now he wants to uncover every secret, every language, break every taboo, even put aside the beef with the dynamic duo who are supposed to be his enemy, so that he can transcend his mortal limitations here on Earth without having to let the mysteries of the afterworld remain beyond reach. Here's a passage from Marlowe, where Faustus asks the demon character Mephistopheles what the secrets of life and death and heaven are, and this is pretty much exactly the same as Odin's motivation. Atreus sees the immoral aspects of Odin's pursuits, even if he's intrigued by the idea, and he ultimately rejects this attitude, turns away from his supposed fate, as we discussed in this other video, like and subscribe, where he was going to maybe continue the cycle of patricide, or at least his own glory seems to have been connected to the downfall of his dad. Instead, he destroys the mask, according to his actually kind of badass motto, be better. And he's actually allowed to do this by Kratos showing trust for his son, which is something that Kratos' grandfather wasn't able to do. And in this way, Atreus actually lets the mysteries of the afterworld be, choosing the path of humility for the first time in the history of Western literature. Not really, but, pretty much, whatever. And it's nice to see Odin get his recompense and everything, even if, as good advocates of science and critical thinking, we can empathize with his desire to have the knowledge of the universe. But at the end of the day, he was abusive and disrespectful to his family, which is unacceptable behavior. But my only problem with the way that this turns out is that I don't know if it's actually that easy or possible or even necessarily desirable to turn away from the Western tradition of Faustian ambition and disobedience. Many of us were just born into a world where we almost do have access to all the knowledge of the world by just touching a glowy light with our fingertips. Make sure to check out my video on the glowy lights in God of War Ragnarok for more information on that. It's an excellent video. Make sure to hit the bell icon. If we or our ancestors have already made these Faustian sacrifices, does turning away from it in the last minute mean that we have burdened ourselves with all that spiritual unhealthiness for nothing? At the end of Marlowe's rendition of the Faust myth, Faustus does consider repenting and turning back, but in his case it's kind of out of fear that he doesn't think that it's really possible for him anymore. For us, if we try to turn back and go back to whatever it would be, nature or Catholicism or whatever, would we even know how to do that anymore? We have the potential to gain more knowledge than any of our arrogant predecessors. Shakespeare did not have access to the Epic of Gilgamesh. The famous man Lord Byron didn't know a single Chinese poet. And look at this, you already know 12. Our fathers and forefathers made poor decisions, so wouldn't it still be a good thing to try to undermine their legacy, like Zeus or Kronos in the days of yore? By casting Atreus' choice to destroy the mask in a positive light, are these storytellers telling us that seeking knowledge, too much at least, is bad? Maybe not. Kratos does tell Atreus that he trusts his judgment, which maybe implies that it's up to each person to make the right choice for their own moment, just like the existentialists say, etc., etc. But maybe turning away from the ambition of Odin specifically, which is obviously grounded in some kind of anxiety, is just going by a gut reaction the right thing to do. Odin's voice seems kind of impatient in this line.
Ask it the question.
So it makes us think, I think that, Odin isn't coming at this journey to knowledge from a place of strength. Anyway, I know this was a pretty philosophical video. We'll wrap it up here. Let me know in the comments whether you think Atreus made the right choice in destroying the mask, and maybe we can learn from each other as well. If you do enjoy discussions of philosophy and literature, I have a second channel and a Patreon where I go into a lot more depth about that. I'll definitely be discussing Faust over there in the next year or two. Links in the description everywhere else. Thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope you gain access to unlimited worldly power as long as you wield it responsibly, and have a wonderful day.